In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the current political landscape, focusing on the tight race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump as the 2024 presidential election approaches. Shapiro critiques the mainstream media narrative that suggests Kamala Harris is leading the race against Donald Trump. Citing polling data from Real Clear Politics, Shapiro points out that while Harris holds a slight national lead, Trump maintains strong positions in key swing states like Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. Recent polls indicate that Trump is either leading or tied in several battleground states, suggesting that the race remains highly competitive. He references polling from Michigan and Pennsylvania, which show Trump performing better than expected, further complicating the narrative of Harris's dominance. As the conversation shifts to Harris's campaign, Shapiro highlights her attempts to distance herself from President Biden's policies, which have become increasingly unpopular. Harris's recent advertisements claim she will tackle inflation and support the middle class, despite her involvement in the Biden administration's economic decisions. Shapiro argues that Harris's messaging is disingenuous, as she has been part of the administration that contributed to rising costs for American families. He also discusses Harris's proposed economic policies, including a $50,000 tax benefit for new small businesses. However, Shapiro critiques these proposals as insufficient, given her plans to raise corporate taxes and increase government spending. The underlying message is that Harris's campaign is struggling to define a clear and effective economic strategy, which could alienate voters who are dissatisfied with the current administration. The podcast further explores the media's portrayal of Harris, suggesting that despite positive coverage, she has failed to gain significant traction among voters. Shapiro references Nate Silver's analysis, which indicates that while Harris has a slight lead, her performance is underwhelming compared to historical expectations for a candidate following a convention. Shapiro argues that the media's focus on Harris's personal attributes rather than her policies may not be enough to secure her victory. A significant portion of the discussion centers around the implications of social media in the political landscape, particularly regarding Elon Musk's platform, X. Shapiro expresses concern that the left is increasingly targeting Musk for his perceived support of Trump and his commitment to free speech. The podcast highlights recent actions taken by foreign governments, such as Brazil's ban on X, as indicative of a broader trend of censorship that could impact the upcoming election. Shapiro suggests that the left's attempts to control the narrative around Harris may lead to a more significant crackdown on free speech, drawing parallels to the media's handling of the Hunter Biden story during the 2020 election. The implication is that as Harris's campaign struggles, there may be a concerted effort to suppress dissenting voices and information that could harm her candidacy. The podcast also touches on the troubling connections between Democrats and Chinese influence, citing recent indictments of a top aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul for allegedly acting as an agent for the Chinese Communist Party. Shapiro raises concerns about the implications of such ties for national security and the integrity of American political institutions. As the episode progresses, Shapiro examines the rise of populism in both Europe and the United States, attributing it to widespread disillusionment with established political institutions. The podcast highlights how economic stagnation, high immigration rates, and a perceived failure of government to address citizens' needs have fueled this populist sentiment. Shapiro warns that this discontent could lead to significant political upheaval if not addressed responsibly.